Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Aw. Okay. I love these. Okay, so this happened in this happens in the episodes all the time where I say, look, pick 4 photos. They're gonna frame what you want to talk about, and then I get these windows into people's lives, and it's a treat, right? So you're in a desert. Looks like I don't know which one, Joshua Tree. No, but it looks like some kind of desert in Arizona or something.
Yep.
In the foreground, you're making a selfie. You and I guess that's your spouse, your wife.
It is. Yep. My wife, Denise.
Very nice. Yeah, both looking at the camera, smiling. Not like a crazy, insane smile, but just like a nice, warm, friendly smile. Could be morning in the desert, slightly overcast. Big, beautiful. I don't remember the name of those cacti, the very tall ones. And she's holding up your book, Find Your Beat. Great promo shot, I have to say. Like, I applaud that. Very well done. So, okay, I can almost guess why you added this photo. So why don't you tell the story?
Again, another why. My wife and I have been married 35 years in June, and we started dating like 8 years before that. So we've been together a long time. And
Wow.
so, yeah, that's a saguaro cactus in,
That's it, yeah.
yep, in Mesa, Arizona. That's another, my wife is another big reason of why I get up in the morning, why I do what I do,
Yeah.
and why, all of that. And we've become such a good team. And so that was a promo picture. It was our local newspaper here wanted some pictures for an article they were running. And so we went out, and that's actually the draft copy of the book. So it's not even bound. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of excitement there with the book, and then sharing that. When I was writing the book and when it was all ready to go and we were going to submit it to the publisher, we both hit send together. My wife and I
Oh,
did.
you guys are too cute.
But it's like, I always say, teamwork makes the dream work, and it's
Nice.
not a cliche. It's real, and so I wanted, when you asked for 4 pictures that kind of fill in a lot of parts of our lives, and that's, she's such a huge part. I could do 4,000 pictures of just her or her and I, or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
she's a great mom, she's a great wife, she's a great grandma, and just a
Yeah.
massive part of my life, and couldn't do any of it without her. She's my glue. And as many goof ups and mistakes as I've made, and she continues to stick with me and support me. It's just humbling and powerful.
No, for sure. I can see in your face. But there's this. I am very drawn to because I have that sensitivity and that sensibility of just recognizing authenticity in others, right? Because of course, like if you don't think of it and don't notice it, then you're like whatever. But I
Mm-hmm.
happen to be the kind of person who hunts around for that,
Yeah.
and so in the image, it's a very authentic, genuine moment of you as a couple
Yeah.
holding up the book. And then next to that is you in video talking about your relationship, talking about the energy between you two.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's like there's that authenticity and and it's so interesting that within a couple of minutes of talking to you, I was just like, okay, so the word choices and how you frame yourself, I am, I can, I will behind you in this
Mm-hmm.
large sort of framed motto. Yeah, it's a very positive, constructive, action oriented sort of, I don't know, like philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And also that seems to be the book. Like of the all the books you could have written, this is the one that you put together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
it's so you touched on this, and I think it's important for people to hear about the challenges and the failures because it's because we all have to push through those moments,
Yeah.
right? So if you had to pick one, and it doesn't have to be the most challenging or the most epic,
Hmm.
But like, why don't you share a moment of failure and hardship that actually was a great lesson?
Yeah. That's a good question. So that was honestly probably the biggest barrier for me publishing this book was that because I was very personal in the book. And actually, when I sent it to a writing coach and he sent me 3 chapters back, and I sat on it for 4 days and I thought, you know what, I don't even want a book. It was a good
Mm,
try. Let's not do it. But I was in such fear that what are people going to think? And so
yep.
when I was 12 years old, I started drinking alcohol. And,
Oh wow.
and I discovered through my writing process in the last few years that alcohol, my relationship with alcohol was, in my opinion and my belief, it leveled the playing field. I'm very introverted in a lot of ways, and when I would drink, then I could communicate with anybody. And
Mm-hmm.
if I was in, and when I was a police officer, I'd go to events. I felt like I was out of place. Like I don't belong here. These people know way more than I do. But if I had a beer in my hand or a cocktail of some sort, it would level the playing field and I'd feel the confidence to go up and speak with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kept accelerating then the use of alcohol. Then it was a numbing agent, when
Mm-hmm.
I would have trauma at work and it just became more of, and I'm an entertainer. I do music and I'm a one man
Mm-hmm.
band. And so a lot of my shows that I was doing, I was drinking during my shows, and it just became what I thought was part of my personality. Like, well, this is what I do. I
Yeah.
drink. And
Yeah.
then I was arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol about a year after I retired from law enforcement, less than a year.
Oh
And
wow.
and so here, the hypocrisy of all of that, that here I dedicated my life to arresting people for violating laws and getting drunk and driving and stuff, and here I was driving drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and so that my relationship with alcohol, and it stopped that day. I mean, I stopped drinking that day, but and so I was thankful in the sense that I was able to just stop drinking. It wasn't like a physical addiction, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't even imagine people that do battle with physical addictions because I didn't have any withdrawals or anything like that. It was all in my head. And
Yeah.
I had people say, "Oh, are you still going to be funny?" Like when I'm doing these shows, I'm like, I don't know. You tell me.
We'll see.
Yeah, come to my. But I thought it was part of my personality, or part of who
Yeah.
I was, and so separating them, like surgically separating alcohol from my shows and who I am, it wasn't nearly as tough as I thought it was going to be, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was opening a lot of like pulling the curtains into our lives that I don't know if my wife was ready to, like, hey, you're pulling back the curtains on your life, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also pulling back the curtains on her life, and so we were both very apprehensive about that, and but again, and like so since the book has been out, I've had people say, you know what, thank you for being strong. And I'm thinking I'm
Mm-hmm.
the weakest guy on the planet, uh,
Mm.
but by me being like vulnerable, I guess is one of the catchwords nowadays. But by
Yeah.
me being vulnerable and saying, you know what, hey, I am not going to throw any stones because I have screwed up more than anybody, and that's really given a lot of people opportunities then to say, well, if Tim Eggebraaten owns his mistakes and tries to do better the next day, maybe I can, and so that's like
Yeah.
my whole, again, it's not about me or my stories. It has nothing to do with me. But if I can share that part of me that from 12 years old to 50 years old, 51 almost, this relationship with alcohol, and if I can share that and if that helps somebody, well, I'm all in. That,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what else is there?
No, it's great. It's totally great. And I think, I mean, as children, you're trying to figure out what is the recipe, what is the root, what is the formula that can help me cope,
Right.
right? And for some kids, if they're, surrounded by the opportunity to drink or the culture of drinking or whatever, or just stumble into that,
Yeah.
yeah, that can kind of take over.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and it's a very common, it's an extremely common reflex for many people. And then that whole question of like, well, it's like, can I let loose without having that excuse or whatever of saying, well, I was drinking so I can be more, drinking makes me more extroverted.
Right.
Well, it's like, okay, now you have to be more extroverted without the alcohol, and
Yeah.
look, you can do it,
Yeah.
right? It was just like it was there all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't my identity. I felt like it was, but then some people feel like their career is their identity also. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think we have to kind of keep flipping that mirror around on ourselves and like, well, who am I? What is my identity?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more than a retired cop. I'm a
Yeah.
husband, I'm a dad, I'm a grandfather, I'm a musician and an entertainer and author. I mean, we're all more than,
Yep.
but we do that as people. We see somebody else and we think we know everything about them just by where they're at, how they look, what they're wearing. If it's religious
Mm-hmm.
material, you think, oh, I know everything about that person. We don't know squat. And
Yeah. And then through a happy accident, you happen to lock eyes, and you think, Norman,
right.
look at you.
Yeah, we have way more in common with each other than we have like differences, and we're all going to have
Yeah.
differences. And hopefully, it would be pretty boring if we were all identical.
Yeah. So, how about like, because there's one school of thought, if we're talking about motivational and leadership and guiding other people, is this idea that we're shaped by our wounds, right?
Mhm.
So you can have these great successes and you go, oh, that's great, but usually a success, you take it and you go, oh, that feels pretty good for like 15 minutes, and then you're like, you file it away. But a wound, a trauma, a
Mhm.
hurt, can sometimes really live on, right?
Right.
So is there a wound that happened early on as an officer that was almost a burden that you carried with you that eventually you thought, hey, you know what? I don't need that either.
In my frame back here, I have that I am, I can, I
Yeah.
will, and then there's a picture right there of one of my partners, and he was one of the first people we met when we moved here to this town, and he got hired on the police department shortly after I did. And about 10 months after I became chief of police, he took his own life. And so,
Oh, fuck.
so that was a trauma that, so I did that what if game, like, should I have seen something? We beat
Mm.
ourselves up when somebody dies by
Mm-hmm.
suicide. And, and so that I wrestled with that a long time, where it was like,
Mm-hmm.
what did I miss? Was it something I said? Was it my fault? And all of these different pieces. So his death really took a lot of the wind out of my sails. It was like, what am I even doing in this career? And am I capable of leading this agency?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but as time went on, and as I repressed that, his and then I discovered, probably 6 or 7 months after his death, I discovered that I'd had an entire career of repressing every single trauma, and I never talked to my wife.
Okay.
I never talked to my wife about any of that, and everything was, hey, okay, and I'd have another beer, and because I was always that guy that everything's sunshine and
Mm-hmm.
lollipops. And so his death, when I came to a realization that I probably wasn't right in my head, that I was seeing videos and I was having trauma that I hadn't dealt with ever. And so
Mm-hmm.
all of these, my 20 whatever years of police experience up until that point, was all trauma undealt with, and so it was bubbling over. And so I went in, I saw a psychologist, and that's when I discovered mindfulness and meditation, and sitting with those images and those memories and not pushing them away and dealing with
Mm-hmm.
them in a healthy way. And so I think that his death again, the timing of it was never a good timing for it. And it just rocked me so hard that it's like, okay, well, now what? So
Right.
the ball's in my court. What am I going to do with it? And do I hit it back, or how am I going to handle this? And so that I can, I will. Proved very powerful. That what, and I'm not going to do it myself. You said it
Mm-hmm.
before. I mean, this whole community of life. We're not designed to do this by ourselves. And I reached out and I got help. Recognized first that I need help.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big first step, and then getting the help, and then following through with it and continuing with it. And so now it's a continual daily. Am I going to let things stress me out? And nobody's going to make me mad. You can't make me mad. You
Mm-hmm.
can't make me anything. I control all that. So
Yep. 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 Tim, you just ladled like a massive soup pot of knowledge.
my job, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's move on to the next photo. I am, I can, I will. So, is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So, if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.